There is the triggered self, the healed self, and the whole self. Most of us are between the triggered self and the healed self, and very few of us are ever here in the whole self. In order for us to get to the whole self, not only do we need to integrate our existence as we know it from the gross manifest reality, but also that which we don't know, where we come from, our infinity, the entirety of our existence, which incorporates everything. Our triggered self is the self, right, which is akin to a toddler who cannot contain their emotions. It is that part of us who don't know emotional regulation. We don't know how to regulate our emotions. We suffer from emotional dysfunction. For whatever reason, we go through this. And then we have our healed self, where we know this, we know that we have certain emotional dysfunction. We take the steps, which include awareness and various techniques, in order for us to bring ourselves into a state of healing. Now, the reason why I mentioned the whole self here is for us to understand the healed self. The healed self is different from the whole self. Because you have healed, it will not automatically make us the whole self without integrating all the facets, all the aspects of who we are. And in order to do this, we go from a dismembering to a remembering of all aspects and facets of our sense of self, and then the self. The healed self knows what its triggers are, and it knows when it's about to get triggered, and it also knows when to take a step back from the trigger, and that if it has been triggered, then it then knows the recovery period from the moment you're triggered to when you recover is shorter. Your healed self is gradual, right? So when you can be healing self, or you're completely healed. Now, when you're completely healed, this is when we then have the opportunity of exploring and integrating all the rest of us. The rest of us that is beyond this body consciousness. So once we have healed the body consciousness, we can then explore everything else, although these processes usually do take place in tandem. The triggered self, now this, folks, happens when our pain body is up. It's arisen. Either the pain body is up, or we are more hypervigilant, or we are more sensitive, and we are more sensitive because we have a heightened sense of perceiving danger even when danger is not there, owing to a past experience. That means we will be more triggered than if that incident hadn't taken place. So the threshold for being triggered is lowered. So when you have a lower threshold to be triggered, you're living life treading between eggshells. And just when you think, I am now relaxed, I am now safe, before you know it, around the corner, you've blown your top off, lost your handle on things, and literally gone from Zen to the absolute opposite. Between the triggered self and the healed self, which is the healing stage, your transitional stage, this is when you will be aware that that is what has happened, that that's my triggered self, right? And you will be able to get yourself out of it, not by distracting or numbing how that trigger made you feel, no, but by literally facing it head on. So, whatever the trigger made you feel, and that you are now going through this upset, distress, and you're really, really feeling anxious, right? And really stressed out. The magic here, or a little tip, is not for you to avoid it. So, don't try to fill it up. Don't try to fill, don't try to push it under the carpet. No. Instead, sit. Sit with it, whether it takes you 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. If you simply sit with that upset, right? Sit with that horrible feeling and let it just really sink into it, right? So you completely just sink into that horrible feeling of it, right? No distractions. You're feeling like sulking, you sulk and you're just down in the doldrums, full on at that point. As long as, of course, we know that you keep yourself safe from bringing any harm to yourself. But in that point, when there is zero coping mechanism, and that is the key, in order for you to heal your triggered self and know that you've really healed it, there's got to be zero coping mechanisms in place, whether that's friends, family, any support system. Switch it off. And that's why it's when you go into a cave or when you go into this place on your own, you can really face yourself. But when we have a million coping mechanisms around us to distract us and to numb the pain that we're really feeling, you're not really giving yourself a chance to rise above it or get through it, because it's almost like we're saying, well, I'm not going to get through it. That's just the way it is. And then you push it under the carpet, under the rug, for it to never come up, or for it to come up as an explosion, right? And if not, it just almost keeps you away from that whole sense of self, which is you just live consciously and in your vulnerable self, childlike awe. That childlike awe goes away, right? So when we allow ourselves to sit in that triggered self, we then give the triggered self some leeway to turn to healing and to then be healed. Once the self has healed, a lot of things become very, very much simpler to navigate, because you have become that much closer to knowing the root of you. And to know the root of you, right? Look at the amount of effort you might put into getting to know somebody else, and you look them up and we put such a big effort, right? For what? For what? When the person that we need to be getting to know is that one, the one that you look into the mirror every day, right? That's the person that we got to get to know. So when we know that this is what has triggered me, and you know that you're triggered, allow yourself some grace to sit in that and see what happens. Do this. Let me know how it goes. Drop me a comment and let me know how it goes. Sending you so much love, so much healing from my heart to yours.